And we're live. I'm I'm waiting on getting this set up. We have some big giveaways coming up, and we have an AMA with Fiddy. We got some special guests. We're recapping what happened in 2025 and what to look forward to in 2026. So be sure to start asking your questions for the AMA because that's how you can participate in the giveaway. And we'll have some other giveaways too if you've already made content or you've engaged with our latest tweet on the Paradex Twitter account about our apology. Now, we're going to have some people on very soon. I wanted to introduce Josh. Josh, are you ready for your introduction? And if not, we're
What's
just
up,
going to.
everybody? G
Oh, there we
Dime.
go. Is your camera off?
I'm not sure if it's just my computer and my screen, but you sound like really, really low and delayed.
Oh,
But the show must go on. G
okay.
Dime, everybody. My name is Josh, your new intern here. So be sure you go ahead and like this stream so I can get a job. I'm real excited about these giveaways today. A lot of important alpha coming your way, and let's get right into it. So yeah, Dan, I'm not sure if that's just my screen, but you sound like Darth Vader. Like your
Oh,
voice is like real low and
maybe.
real slow. I'm not sure if that's just on my side, but we have the wheel here, and we have some names here of
Let's.
some members who went ahead and
Yeah.
quoted the tweet about our apology, and we
Do you,
have some giveaways to do.
yes, I just want to check with the people. Do you guys see Josh, or is there any issues with my audio? I'm in the hotel. Internet might not be great late at night. Everyone's online and relaxing. So we want to introduce Josh. He's a mysterious figure for both of you, or is this just appearing on my side? No video for Josh. All right, Josh, it is your video. Can you check if your settings changed very
It seems
briefly?
fine on my side. Everything is connected. That's really strange. Let me try to turn mine off and back on.
Okay, refresh it and we'll buy you some time. Now, we see a lot of people here in the chat and just want to address it. Use that time. Damn, is Josh the intern of Paradex Eco? No, we got another team for that. That account has a few interns. They're doing a great job. But Josh will be helping on the content management and streaming side when Dime TV brings on more streamers. So 2026, you're going to see a lot more content. That's a little bit of alpha. We're going to be going hard on the streaming and content side of things. And well, I don't know why, but this made me laugh. But Map D does too. Yeah, yeah. The hotel has a great cocaine table right next to the stripper. You guys weren't supposed to see our cocaine table. That is um, on the unhinged side of Paradex. And I think we'll just bring on our main guests and our main course for today's stream as we get these technical difficulties. But be sure to stick around until the end of the stream because Josh and I are handling the giveaways. We're going to be adding every name that had a good question that was brought onto the screen, and we'll be giving away some very big prizes that will be revealed very soon. All right, with that, we're going to bring on Fidi, Menno, and Abi. Hey, guys.
Good time, everyone.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Chidan.
Merry Christmas to everyone.
Merry Christmas. How was your Christmas, guys? Did you ever enjoy it?
Yeah,
Good.
it's awesome.
I mean, like it's been a big year. I mean, like not only in crypto but for Paradex. It's always nice to disconnect a bit. But I mean, like now we get back to the action, right?
I don't know what disconnect you're talking about, man. We've been grinding, bro.
You've been grinding.
We've been grinding. We got a big January coming up, so we got no time to lose, baby.
That's what I like to hear. So yeah, I'm Menno. I am a community member that's also doing some extra stuff on the side. I'm joined by Abi. Abi, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Abby. I run a company called AP Collective. We've been working with Fiddy and the team for some time. I'm an active user of Paradex as well and also create some content too.
Yeah, so Abhi, for those who don't know Abhi's like, he's kind of like on the DL, working behind the scenes. This dude, he's been super, super helpful. As we've kind of like, I'm sure you've seen over the last 6 months, our, share in the space, the streams, all the stuff with the memes, the ecosystem account, the streamers, like all of the stuff, all of that, is basically what Abhi kind of helps us on. And so, we obviously would not be here today. So really awesome to, that you could join us, Abhi, today. So thank you. And then also thank you for the help.
Awesome. Thanks for the kind words, Fiddy. And I guess that's also a good way. So you started by saying like how we contributed to Paradex's journey, but just tell me a little bit about 2025 in general. I think was a breakout year for perpdexes. There was a couple more which came onto the map. Just tell us a little bit more from your perspective on what your thoughts are on this year and what exactly that meant for Paradex as well.
Yeah, so to kind of give context about like what happened this year, I think it's like important, at least from my perspective, as a builder. This is not something like we didn't start building a Perpdex at the start of the year, right? We decided to build this thing in 2022, end of 2022, when FTX collapsed, and the sad part at that time was the technology was just not there to basically put a high throughput derivatives exchange fully on chain, right? And so it took basically in the better part of 2 years for technology, basically L2s, to get where they are. We're obviously an L2, Lighter is another L2, and of course L1s, and you saw Hyperliquid doing the same thing. So it's basically taken projects the better part of like 18 months to 2 years to kind of even get to the field, to the arena that we find ourselves in today, right? And then only this year, at the start of the year, were we kind of like unconstrained by chain issues. So last year, if you guys remember, we barely had any pairs or markets, and part of the reason was that we couldn't, we were kind of restricted by how much gas or the gas price basically on chain of settling on Ethereum. And so anyways, all those issues were basically solved second half of last year, and only the first half of this year, specifically January. If you guys were basically if you tuned into our tweets yesterday, where we were posting about the roadmap, you will see like that's when we really started like multi-strategy vaults, things like that, where there's a lot of kind of like gas constraints that we had before were not available. Basically, we were no more constrained. That's when we really started to kind of like roll it out, right? And then since then, we've just been kind of like rapid fire, firing on all cylinders, right? And in Q4 is when basically you saw all the kind of like the foundational work that we had basically put in at the start of the year, the first half of the year, and in Q3, it really came to fruition because all of a sudden, I think within the span of a few weeks, we had V2, which was like completely new backend, basic 14.0, which is a new version of our chain. We had a completely new UI, right? And so like basically in isolation, each of those things are pretty large, but effectively these were all of the things we did all year were towards these things. Like if we hadn't done any of the things we did in the first half of the year, we would never be able to do it, right? So it's been people see like, oh, what did you release this month? But it's like, to me, it's like really, it's like continuous, right? You're always, it's like one penny in the piggy bank, that allows you to basically get to something else kind of in the future, right? So yeah, so that's kind of how I see 2025, and I can go into detail as needed, but just kind of to summarize, that's how I see it.
Yeah, definitely. I think just to add, I mean, like if I joined Paradex end of 2024, I mean, like the Gigavolt just released. It was like if you compare just Paradex from early 2025 until now, I mean, like if you put them next to each other, you won't recognize them, So I think, but it's like a year in crypto feels like a really long time. Well, it's not that long, but
Yeah.
it's like it just feels like a long time. But if you see these evolvements over time, it's crazy.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned like when we were putting together the tweet yesterday, the stats where we were like, okay, we compared last December to this December, And like you said, the gigavault at that, I think we missed putting the gigavault in there. The gigavault only had 5 million or something, even less than that in December of last year. And this December, it's 100 million, right? So it's like many orders of magnitude higher. But if you look at like our open interest, we like basically 30x our open interest. Our ADVs were 22 times ADV. Our TVL was about 7 times, and our DAUs were, I think, about 6 times. But even though those numbers seem like a lot, somehow we're like still not number one, right? And that's like how crazy this market is, and that's how crazy crypto is, that you can 30x your metrics and you're still number 3, right? And that's like that's what's so hard about this game, but that's what's also so exciting, right? That like you have these like very highly technically competent teams kind of working, under high pressure, because the timelines, because of TGE, are so compressed to deliver kind of like a really cutting edge technical product at scale, and find product market fit at the same time, right? So it's like it's really amazing, like what crypto has done, not just for basically finance in general, but also what it's done to kind of like technology cycles, right? If you think about like the traditional Silicon Valley cycle, it used company starts and then maybe it takes about 3 to 4 years to find, or even 5 years to find product market fit, sometimes even longer, and then IPOs maybe 7 to 10 years. That happens in like 18 months in crypto, right? Yeah. It's like, and so like it's basically compressed this crazy product development cycle, and it's basically put it on steroids. And now teams are kind of like just forced to figure it out in 18 months. And so that's what's so hard about it, and that's what's also so fun.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a lot of good things there, Fiddy. And I think my main takeaways and things which I want to dive a little bit deeper on is you mentioned open interest is up 30x. Mm-hmm. What does that metric mean to you guys in comparison to things like volume and everything else? And secondly, the other question which I wanted to dive into is you mentioned there was some technical restraints which are no longer there. What was the most important thing from a roadmap perspective, which were things that you shipped that made a meaningful difference to the product, which accumulated to that success when it came to 10x, 20x, a number of different metrics?
Yeah. So open interest is kind of unique, right? So one is it's in general it is harder to fake open interest for people, and so like I tend to, look, it's no one measure is like the be all end all of like is this does this exchange have truly organic volume, right? Because that, at the end of the day, you want to know that as a user, because you're betting on the exchange long term by investing your time and your dollars trying to farm the token, and then expecting a reward in the future, and then hopefully you become kind of a long-term holder, right? That's kind of like the general psyche of a true long-term holder. If you're a farmer looking to dump, that's a different thing. But the real user basically has this type of psyche. So if you are this type of person, you want to know like how legit the volume is, and like how legit the exchange is. And volume is not a great kind of like because it's so easy to fake, right? Like a single account with with $100 can trade 50x and just keep going back and forth on sort of like a low volatility pair, and it's especially easy on dexes that have 0 fees, right? And so like internally, of course, volume is obviously the North Star metric for us, but we tend to look at revenue, because ultimately that's the thing that drives, the volume. You could have like 100 billion revenue, but if you're only making, $10,000 per day, that's like, it's nothing, nothing to write home about, right? And so, but open interest, by on the other hand, is relatively kind of like, compared to volume, is relatively hard to fake, right? And so you genuinely have to create. That's why as teams, genuinely have to invest in attracting people that can put capital at risk, because that's the only way to drive up open interest, right? Somebody has to bring TVL to the platform. Someone has to basically put up a leverage position, and given leverage, and even if you're doing delta neutral across platforms, and a lot of people are doing that for sure, and everybody's aware of that, you still have to, like, there's no way you can put like a 50x leverage position if you're doing delta neutral, because you have the risk of becoming liquidated, right? And so basically my point is that, like, on average, it is much harder to fake open interest than it is volume. And so, like, if you're looking at, like, hey, is this exchange legit or not, one of the things that should stand out to you is, what is the ratio of basically volume to TVL, volume to open interest, et cetera, right? And so we understood this very early, like start of the year, and we realized, look, we can attract a lot of these high frequency traders that are just going to be delta neutral and they're just going to farm the token back and forth. But there's two things. One is this volume, these guys are super mercenary. So post TGE, we're not going to be able to retain them. And B, from a metric standpoint, it doesn't really help metrics which cannot, basically be faked, quote unquote. And other users that come to the platform are going to be like, you know what, this exchange is fake, right? And so we had to do the hard work of building a product that actually attracts real long-term users, right? And of course, another reason I say, basically, like, to do something like this, which I just described, it takes time. Some of it you can't just snap your fingers and be like, oh, cool, let me have, like, 10x open interest in a single day, right? So if you look at the trajectory of how our open interest has gone up, it has been extremely gradual. Menno can kind of attest to this, right? He's kind of one of our, like, earliest users. So anyway, so that's kind of my thoughts on that. And then
and I think just in general, you can really see the metrics that increased this year. It was just really you guys from the team really just keeping at it, right? You just kept on delivering. I mean, like, it was not only sunshine this year, right? There were some difficulties, but when there were difficulties, you owned up to it. It's like we're in this together, right? We have this vision together of this new DeFi future, and it's like, it's not always going to be easy, but we're in this together. And I think that really just, if you keep at it and you keep delivering and you keep your promises, I think that's just really testament to the growth that Paradex had in 2025.
Yeah, and actually that ties to Abhi's second question as well, which is, I think you asked, what is the one thing that really was the thing that, basically, like, open the floodgates for us. And it is kind of that question is inextricably tied to the question, basically the comment that Menno just made, which is like, we kept delivering. And basically my point is that, like, hey, in order for us to attract real users, we had to keep actually delivering real few features, right? And the biggest feature for an exchange is really liquidity, right? Because if you're an exchange and you're making financial products available to people, but when those people come to trade those things and those things are not liquid enough, or they can't get them off in certain size, then nobody's going to trade on your exchange, right? So the number one thing we had to solve is liquidity. And the way we did that is RPI, right? And so RPI allowed us, basically was the big unlock for us, for people to put on big size, because for the first time, market makers could show prices at really, really, great prices without worrying about being picked off. And then other takers saw that and was like, oh, wow, this is an exchange where I can put on size. And so then they started putting on size. And then, of course, the open interest and TVL and all those metrics started to go up as well, right? So these questions are kind of like all connected in a sense, because ultimately it's just like, it's the quest for solving liquidity at scale. Right. And we did that through, obviously RPI was step number one, and then zero fees ultimately was step number two. And then boom, the floodgates kind of just, exploded from there.
I really like how you put that together. And I think one thing that wasn't touched upon in the thread, and something which you mentioned now, and ultimately the metric that is hardest to fake, is revenue, right? Yep. So based on DeFi Llama, it says that you guys have over $1 million in 30 days fees. But I just want to, I guess, get your overall thoughts on Paradex as a business, and from a revenue perspective, what are your thoughts on that? Because ultimately, your bottom line is the most important thing for any product, right? Whether it's crypto, whether it's not crypto, whether it's in finance, etc. So we'd just love your thoughts on this a little bit.
Yeah, so look, revenue is how value accrues to the token, right? You can have all the metrics in the world, but if you ultimately are not giving value back to the token holders, this whole exercise doesn't really mean anything. It's like meaningless, right? Now, now that's not to say that you should be giving away all the revenue you make right now in buybacks or staking dividends or whatever, right? Because ultimately it's value given back to the token holder. Either that is in the form of price appreciation, because let's say, for example, the project doesn't give back any revenues at all and keeps investing in growth, like Amazon did basically in the early 2000s. For the first 10 years, Amazon basically gave out no dividends, right? And it wasn't even making a profit, because they were basically kept reinvesting in growth. And that of course turned out to be the right strategy, right? And so revenue is definitely important. It's the number one North Star, but it is important because today it is a proxy for value creation, right? But what I foresee for this space in general is, like, part of the reason why people have been so fixated on revenue is because Abhi, I'm sure you know this better than anyone. There's been just so much garbage in the space, right? But people have just built projects and not given a shit about actual value creation in a way, and people were just buying into these false promises. They funded these teams had $200-300 million in their back pocket, and they didn't do shit after that, right? And so, not surprisingly, people were like, okay, fuck you guys, right? We need to see some value creation. And of course, Hyperliquid, I think, did this phenomenally well. They executed on this really well. They understood that, and then they said, look, not only are we going to create value, which DEX, obviously an exchange, makes a lot of money, but we're going to give this back via buybacks to people, right? So I think it's two things. One is you need to create value, and then you need to basically show that, like, hey, this value accrual comes back to the users or the token holders in some way. And we're no different, right? We all have TradFi backgrounds. We totally understand that, like, this is the value. Ultimately, the only thing that matters is value and value accrual to the token holders. And so we're razor focused on not just creating value, but also making sure that, like, we're creating, basically that value accrues back to the token holder.
Yep, makes a lot of sense, and I really like how you articulated that. And specifically, you talked about Hyperliquid. Hyperliquid and Lighter are two products which I think have very, I guess, their audience don't like each other too much. Lighter TGE today, what are your thoughts on that? And I think, for perp dexes as a whole, the pie has definitely grown bigger, more than just Hyperliquid this year. Earlier there was Aster, today there was Lighter with their TGE. I think both of those trends sort of are indicating that the pie is large enough to support multiple players. What are your thoughts specifically on Lighter TGE? And also, I think the biggest sort of mainstream moment of perp dexes this year was when Aster launched, and the value which was accrued afterwards to token holders, etc. So I would love to get your thoughts on Lighter TGE.
Yeah, look, both teams, the two teams I respect the most in this space, one is Hyperliquid, obviously. I mean, there's no unquestionable, there's nobody in this space. You might not like them, but you cannot not respect them, right? What they have done for this space in terms of showing what is possible and then just executing it relentlessly, that is something all builders in this space should take inspiration from, including us. And we've been, very vocal supporters of them, even when there was a lot of shit going through and, people call them this and that. We're like, nope, this is the right, this is the right approach. So that's number one. And number two, Lighter too. I think they've done a fantastic job of identifying kind of like a market need, identifying kind of a niche and their space in the market, and then really going after it and just executing relentlessly, right? So not surprisingly, obviously Hyperliquid token has done extremely well. But not surprisingly, a Lighter's token will also continue to do well, right? I think minus this initial period where all these farmers need to get out of the way, maybe that takes a week or so. But once that's done, I think the token should do fantastically well, right? And but to your other point, as to your point about is there space for everyone, for more players in this space, in this space, right? And my thoughts on this are, I've articulated this kind of in a different context, and that context, in a post that I did some time ago, and I called it basically, the perp dexes are basically the DeFi supercenters, right? Or the perp dexes are the next on-chain money centers, right? And what I mean by that is that if you think about basically the, in TradFi, the things that, the beating heart of TradFi, or the beating heart of any economy, really is a financial center, right? And when I say financial center, I mean, basically groups of businesses in a particular city, let's say New York or London or, Hong Kong or whatever. And these kind of like, centers of basically commerce is where basically businesses and individuals went when they wanted access to financial services, right? And what is happening now with basically with smart contracts, the physical economy is moving on chain. And so as the economy is moving on chain, the first thing that physical economy or that digital economy or the internet economy is going to need is also a financial center, right? And so the kind of people kind of get lost in like, okay, are you on Aster or are you on Lighter and this, blah, blah, blah. The way I think about it is like, ignore that for a second. Think about the big picture trends, right? The entire world's economy is moving on chain, right? And this is literally every single country in the world. And so do you think that there's, the entire world's economy is going to run from one financial center, right? The answer is no, right? Because like for whatever reason, geographical reasons, cultural reasons, people are going to, you're going to need multiple, jurisdictions with multiple, multiple exchanges and multiple marketplaces in different parts of the world, right? And so that's the way I think about it, right? So the answer to your question is like, hell yeah, there's going to be, there's going to be more than enough space for multiple players to operate just because the total size of these markets is so fucking huge, right? Just think about it. The entire world's economy is moving on chain. That is trillions of dollars, right? That is moving on chain. And those trillions of dollars need basically now a digital marketplace that it can access permissionless and 24/7. And obviously Perdexes are going to be those things, right? And so yes, absolutely, I think there's space for more players. But I will say that given the network effects of these markets, right? Because these markets have such powerful network effects. Liquidity has such powerful network effects that the first scalers in this market will tend to win most of the market. So it's both true that there is space for more players, but the majority of the market share will be taken by, let's say, probably 3 to 4 players. Like we'll probably have like 80-90% of the market share, if that makes sense. And that's mainly because of how powerful the network effects are of these businesses.
Yeah, and I think in general, I think 2025 will also be the year in which a lot of perp dexes popped up. They got very popular quickly, but also fell down really quickly, right? It's really difficult to maintain all these metrics, maintain the users, especially if your main focus is like farming. But yeah, I think what you say is very interesting. Like we're still, I mean, like what you're saying is we're still pretty damn early, right?
Yep, dude. This is like innings 0.0001, right? People are looking at this as like, oh, this is innings number 2 because we live in this little bubble that is crypto, right? Like we need to get out of this bubble. If this crypto bubble is now going to be the world's financial, like we are going to take over all of finance, right? Like that's, just think about that. And like finance TradFi has barely come on chain. They're talking about tokenization. It's like bare bones foundational pieces are being talked about. They're not even, it's maybe happening with a few kind of leading companies here and there that are kind of leading the charge. But like we're literally talking about, basic pieces that are first going to move. And so if those things are happening, how can it be more, how can we be in kind of like the middle or late stage? We haven't even, started out on the early stages, right? So yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the most exciting thing for me is just like what is Paradex going to look like in 5 years, right? Like how much of an impact will we have on the financial world, right? How big of a space will we carve out for ourselves and say, okay, this piece is ours and we own this piece end to end, right? Like that is what I'm looking forward to.
And what can we expect from this vision that you have for Paradex in 2026? Like just a couple of features that you feel like that are coming to Paradex, which are part of this grand vision.
So look, the most people don't kind of know this, but the original kind of the mission statement for Paradigm, which is the first company that I started in 2018, the mission statement was trade anything with anyone and settle instantly, right? It was a simple thing. And we said, look, we need to build a platform where this mission statement is like real. You can feel it. You literally can spin up on your mobile phone or your computer. You can literally structure any product You can trade it with any person you want. You trade it using any protocol that you want, whether it's RFQ, whether it's central limit order book. It doesn't really matter. And then once you click buy or sell, it should settle instantly, right? Paradex is the evolution of that vision, because we ran into constraints when we were building Paradigm, in that the constraints were that we were we were limited by the centralized exchanges, because we used the centralized exchanges to settle. So we said, look, I'm not going to be able to grow our business because we have dependency on the exchanges. So we knew we had to basically have control or access to the settlement layer. And that's when we built Paradex, right? And so why am I telling you all this? Is basically, it's like an indirect way to answer your question, is that, the indirect way to answer your question is to basically paint you a vision of what is the end goal of what we're trying to build. Right? Like the end goal of what we're trying to build is to literally give every single human on earth permissionless access to financial opportunity, right? That is our, if you look at our kind of like our mission statement on our page, it says our mission is to unlock financial freedom for everyone. Right. And that vision has been the driving force behind why I started Paradigm. And now, as that vision kind of morphed and evolved into Paradex, only because I realized that, like, wow, I have this dependency on these centralized players that I need to get out of, because I'm constrained now by, in my pursuit of building this vision. Right. And so once you see that vision statement, and you work backwards from there, it becomes very clear. Think about this: a platform, or like your mobile phone. You can pick up your phone, and any asset in the world, whether that's an equity, whether it's basically it's an equity securities, whether it's equities, whether it's RWAs, whether it's commodities, everything should be available within the click of a button. Right. And so obviously we already have spot perps options, and most of that is we have perps and options. The next obviously is spot, but as soon as we launch that, we will launch RWAs, we will launch equities, and basically the whole all the instruments that go into the financial stack.
That's awesome. And you started to touch upon 2026. Something which I think will definitely come in 2026 is the Dime token. But I think, instead of asking a boring question like when Dime, I think there's certain milestones that need to be hit before Dime launches. I think you already touched on some of those things, things like spot trading, etc. But from your perspective, how far are we from Dime launch? What exactly do we need to kind of tick? Is there any certain metrics? Is there any certain products that need to be shipped so that we get closer to that sort of stage? Because I think that's what most users care about, right? We talked about lighter TG being a success. Yeah. We talked about hyperliquid token in general being a success. So I guess, what are the boxes that need to be ticked for us to get closer to Dime launch?
Yeah, so the first thing from a what do we need perspective, from a technical requirement perspective, we need spot, right? And we've, good news is we've been working very hard on spot, and the work is, it's already underway. And I think we should be kind of like, in the next, let's say, our target is to get spot ready sometime in January, right? And then, obviously we've talked about us launching our meme coin and things like that, and that's definitely on the table, right? So I know we've kind of like maybe indirectly talked about it, but I can confirm that we are definitely thinking about it very seriously, and so you should expect something maybe end of January if everything goes well, right? And then the whole point of the meme coin is really to help launch the spot system and the spot mechanism overall, right? Because spot is such a complicated thing. It interacts with the risk engine in a different way. You have to worry about bridging and things like that on the L1, L2, and everything needs to just work across basically, all the entire kind of risk framework that we have. And so therefore the meme coin basically helps us, sort of do that, right? And so, yeah, so that's number one from a sort of technical requirement perspective. From a metrics perspective, look, we have about 55,000 users, something like that right now. We have about 160 million TVL. I would love if we get to something like 250, 300 mil TVL at least, and then have our users basically get to closer to 100,000. right? And so it doesn't seem that far, just given the trajectory that we're on. And the last couple of months, we've made some really, really big strides on both on users, TVL, open interest, etc. And so I think we are, we're kind of like, I think we're well on our way there. Like I don't see any reason why we should not be able to hit those metrics, let's say over the let's say month and a half or so, right? So yeah, so anyway, so that's basically that's how I think about it. So one is, I think we need to definitely have more traction on the DAU side, on the TVL side, and on the volume side as well. They're all basically all connected. And number two is we need Spot, which is really like a hard stop, for us to actually roll out the Dime token.
Amazing. You touched on so many different things. Almost like the first month of tour next year, this is sort of the plans. This is what we're looking to do. This is why it's realistic to achieve. So it kind of gives the audience here today and the users of Paradex kind of a really good understanding of what's coming and how things are pretty close. And I think for me, something which we see a lot is like what's next, what's new, what's hot. We saw that Lighter had their TGE today. We saw EdgeX launch their meme coin just a week ago. If we're looking at it purely on DeFi Llama or any other sort of credible site, what next has to be Paradex, because under Lighter TGE, the next thing has to be Paradex TGE. But one thing that's somewhere in the middle, and you touched upon as well, is that Paradex are seriously considering a meme coin. EdgeX launched their meme coin just a week ago. What are your sort of thoughts on that in general, and what are your thoughts on, I guess, something which we haven't touched upon at all is the Money Badger's role in the ecosystem? Is that linked to the Dime token? Is that a sort of dependency as well that you maybe want to consider? So that's, I guess, just would love to get your thoughts on, the EdgeX's meme coin launch on Christmas, and then also, what's sort of there for Money Badgers. We're doing a giveaway of a couple Badger boxes. Are Money Badgers and Badger boxes the same thing?
Yep.
Would love to get your thoughts.
Okay, so there's a lot the team has planned that I can't really reveal so far, only because I don't want to ruin the surprise. But I will say, like, the way we think about the meme coin and the Money Measure brand in general, like you were just talking about, is we actually take a much deeper we have a much deeper kind of like take on why these things are even needed, right? Calling it a meme coin in many ways is a little bit of a disservice, because we've never thought of launching we call it a meme coin because that's easy for people to understand and gravitate onto, right? It's just like it makes it easy to it makes the idea more transmissible. But I've always thought about NFTs and the meme coins as basically brand assets, right? Because if you think about it, every project should, basically you already informally see this in some communities, but in our community for sure, there's an economic reason why people are in the community, and then there's a cultural reason why people are in the community, right? From the early beginnings of Paradex, there were basically three things I told the team. I said, look, people are coming here for three reasons, right? They want to have fun, they want to feel like they're part of a community, and they want to make money. Right. And so number one and number two are really the cultural side of this, right? Which is they want to have fun and they want to and they want to be a part of a community. And so if this is true, then why are we so overtly focused on the economic layer? Right? Because the culture has as much to do with why people are here, if not more sometimes, than the economic reason. And of course, don't get me wrong, money is great, and money is the reason. Making people feel rich creates the wealth effect. The wealth effect makes you feel good, and it breeds better and better things in the future. But even if the token was not there, like for instance, I'll give you a good example. Minnow and Laz, all these early community members that were there, they basically kind of have been cheering us on from the sidelines. I can tell you for a fact, and you can ask Minnow live on stream, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Minnow, for this, but like, money is not the only reason you guys are here. At least I've always thought that, like, wow, and the only reason I know this is because you guys have been with us even when our metrics were shit and our platform was shit. Metrics were shit. We were nowhere close to where we are today, right? But you guys stuck around, and you guys stuck around, and the only thing I can take from that is like, wow, these guys are here. They're betting on the vibes. They're betting on us as a team. That's number one, and B, they like the vibes in our Discord, right? And I think both those things, and so that was very visible to me, since day one. This is why I think our mods and are basically the absolute OGs. And the one thing I would love to see is this: when we win and Dime launches and everything, the thing that would make me the happiest is to see all these guys do super well, because they have literally been with us when everybody else said, nah, this is a shit project, you guys, I don't see a future for you guys, right? And so, anyways, all that to say that culture is a very, very intrinsically kind of important part of this whole puzzle, this whole game that we're playing. And so if it is important, then you need something else to kind of basically kind of like forge culture into, basically you want to kind of make that permanent in some way, right? And so the only way you can do that is to create an asset out of that. And those are brand assets, right? And so the NFT is our way of basically enshrining this OG-ness in the first 10,000 kind of members of our community, right? Why? Because they've stayed here, they've supported us, and they have basically contributed to our community in a productive way. And this is our way of permanently kind of like recognizing that, right? And so that's the number one thing, right? Is the NFT basically is that, and that's what the Money Badgers is, right? But the second part of this, which is the meme coin, right? If you think about the NFT, one of the limitations of the NFT, and I'm sure you know this better than anyone, which is the NFT can only appeal to 10,000 people, right? Because if you want to keep it valuable, you cannot have like 100,000 NFTs or 200,000 NFTs, right? Every collection needs to have some sort of finite supply. The kind of scarcity of it basically, helps reinforce value. And so we were like, look, there's these 10,000 people that we want to kind of like, enshrine, but we have like 50,000 people. We have like, maybe by TGE, we will have 100,000 people. And so very clear, like it was very clear that the NFTs themselves, you couldn't just launch one brand asset and basically show this appreciation or enshrine this OG-ness in people, right? So we said, okay, the other way to kind of solve this is to, or not solve this, or to be able to cater to this is to launch another brand asset, which is unconstrained by total supply. And that's what, when the meme coin sort of comes in, right? And so now you have these two brand assets. One is to help basically drive home loyalty and enshrine or reward loyalty in some way and recognize that in people. But two is you can find a way to basically like quantify this culture in some way through the meme coin, right? And so I know I'm talking a lot, but like this is kind of like how we've always thought about culture, right? It's just like culture is such a big part of the Dime ecosystem that we couldn't just ignore it and go straight for Dime and say, you know what, boom, money is the only reason why people are here, right? Like that's like we couldn't do that. And so we knew, and so that's why the Money Badgers, and this is why I'm so excited about it, is because we've put literally at this point, we've been working on the Money Badger launch for over a year, right? And so most people kind of like don't know that. We even acquired a studio so that we could get here, right? And so there's basically a team of 11 artists that have been basically working full time for the better part of a year to bring the Money Badgers to life. And so when it actually happens in Jan, I really hope people see the love and of labor that has sort of gone into bringing this to life.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I think your passion is very visible when you articulate your thoughts on a lot of things. And I think specifically on the cultural side of Paradex, I think that's something which other founders maybe don't have. And I think that's what, to me personally, really stands out for Paradex, and why I was a user well before we ever discussed potentially having a professional relationship. I see one question from the comments from Don11.time.
Sure.
See, you talked about the timeline January a lot, when it came to, potentially spot or increasing metrics, etc. Something which ends at the end of January is season 2. Is there anything that you're able to share on the concept of, what happens when season 2 ends? Is that when TGE is going to happen? Would love your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so we've communicated in the past that the Dime launch will be as soon as season 2 basically gets over, and that's still the intention, right? Like season 2 will end on January 31st is what we had communicated, and the intention is as long as it takes us to get sort of ready After that, we bet that we will launch the token, right? We also do not want to delay. We're all super excited about it. In some ways, this is the culmination of our life's work. So we also want to see this, the token out there as soon as possible. And so yes, season 2 definitely will end, January 31st, and then whatever time after that we need for preparation, which I hopefully think should not be too long. We will launch it, and we have to have some consideration because there's Chinese New Year and stuff around that time. So we want to make sure that when we do launch it, we don't launch it at a time when people are on holiday, for example. And so yeah, so all efforts right now are going towards one, launching the Money Badgers in January, 2 spot, and then 3 time.
So we can say that Q1 is going to be an exciting quarter for Paradex, right?
For sure, the most exciting one so far, and we are all super, super excited. And honestly, this is the energy in right now internally is like through the roof. Like we even going away on like even this little holiday break, right? It's just like everybody's working, right? It's like everybody's like shipping code. I'm seeing this. I was like, wow, the guys. I'm not even asking guys to do it, and they're just doing it. And so like you can see how excited the team is. Of course, like we've been we've been kind of like in the trenches, grinding with you guys for a long time. So, not surprising that everyone is super excited.
Yeah, very exciting times. I think it might be time for some questions from the community. If Dan can get some questions on the screen, else we'll just get some from the chat. But
yeah, I think you can. Yeah, go ahead.
You have a great product, but the points of this product are sold at ridiculous prices on OTC. What do you think about this issue? Do these low sales kill the excitement for the project? I don't know if you can comment on this, but
I mean, to be honest, not sure what to even say about that, because we don't really endorse any OTC marketplace. So like what happens on these marketplaces is really beyond our control, and it's really outside like what is visible to us, right? Which is like when these prices are trading, like how do we know these sales kind of happen at the right prices, right? Like when stuff trades OTC, you always have to take the stuff kind of with a pinch of salt, because one, it's liquid, it's illiquid. Two, it's you don't really know what the intentions of the actors are that are transacting, right? Especially in terms of kind of like because, look, you can, everybody understands that if something is illiquid, you can manipulate it in such a way to your advantage, right? So I wouldn't put too much into that, and like I said, it's beyond what our platform and the thing we operate. So it's a bit hard for me to comment on that, right? Especially since we've said we don't really endorse any of these marketplaces.
I guess I would like to jump in here, just giving like a bit of an external perspective. I think it's maybe not even a bad thing, whatever the price that it's trading at OTC, because I think it's a reflection that it's an organic market that's not being manipulated. And I think, in the situation, you even look today, a product like Buy Lighter, which is trading, $80, $90 per point, and then launches, at $50 per point. Yes, it's a great launch. Yes, it's a huge success. But I would say, Paradex really prioritizes revenue, really prioritizes real metrics like open interest. So there's no incentive to, take part in, making sure that the optics of an OTC market makes sense, at least from my perspective as an outsider. So I would say from that sort of position, if you're bullish on Paradex and you think it's undervalued, that gives you an opportunity. If you think it's a fair value, that also gives you an opportunity, right? So I think OTC markets exist because there are buyers and sellers, and I think it's in the best interest of the project that's targeting real metrics. I know, Fiddy mentioned a couple times of, like, hey, he wants to hit, almost 100K in users. He wants to hit, 300 million TVL. There's no reason, worrying about the price OTC if his vision is to reach those metrics. So I think his intentions are correct and he's targeting the right things, just from my perspective, from the outside view. And all the people here today who believe in Paradex and think that they're early, there's an opportunity. If people think that it's a fair value, there's an opportunity. If people think if it's overpriced, there's also an opportunity for you to kind of describe the market whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the best way I could put it. I could not have put that better, right? I mean, if you think it's undervalued, go ahead and buy it, right? If you don't, go ahead and sell it, right? It's a free market.
It's a free market. The next question, with spot, dated option, and more coming, when do we get the full super exchange, one account to rule them all feeling?
Yeah, so that's a really fantastic question. So there's a couple of stages to this. First is we need spot because and so if you guys have realized, for those who trade options, you already see this today, that perps and options trade from the same account. So basically we have the unified account construct. And when spot happens, spot will also be from the same account, right? So unlike the other dexes where you have to basically, and even some centralized exchanges where you have like your perp account, your spot account, your funding account, it's got all these different things, and you got to basically like keep moving your funds, which is kind of a pain in the ass. You won't have to worry about that on Paradex at all. You will have one account. We have spot, perps, options, everything margin from the same account, right? So that's step one, launch spot from the same account. Step two is treating spot as collateral, right? So one, today we only accept USDC as collateral, but as soon as we launch, let's say, ETH or BTC and etc., and then the next goal would be to support BTC, ETH, and let's say all the majors as collateral, right? So that means you would be able to get credit for the value of BTC in your account, and you can use that value to basically trade any other asset you want. You want to buy other spot assets, go ahead and buy that on margin. If you want to go and trade derivatives with that, with the perps or options, you can do that, right? And so multi-collateral is step two, and multi-collateral goes hand in hand with portfolio margin, because that's how you need that in order to facilitate what I just said, right? And so it will be two steps. First step will be at TGE when we have just supporting of spot assets from the same account, but then the second step will be called multi-collateral / portfolio margin, which will allow us to basically margin everything from the same account, right? And so if you guys remember, just at the start of the stream, I said the Paradex vision is really trade anything with anyone and settle instantly. But you can kind of add or append a couple of extra words to basically take what you said, Menno, which is trade anything with anyone using any asset as collateral and settle it instantly, right? And so ultimately it all goes into this, like everything is we're like relentlessly driven by this vision of a single unified account where you can literally trade anything with anyone and settle instantly and use any of your assets as collateral.
Yeah, so we can expect spot, then dated options, then add portfolio margin, add multi-collateral, so evolve on the iterations, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome. Uspent Dime, he says, saw a tweet of Fiddy talking about prediction market. Is this a real project for Paradex?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, prediction markets are probably the thing that I've been most excited about over the last, let's say, early user of Polymarket. Absolutely love the concept. The state. I think recently I heard someone quantify. I think it was the Robinhood CEO that said prediction markets are truth machines, and that is 100% true, because in a world where there's just so much content and it's free to make content, right? The marginal cost of making content is basically zero, and so everybody with an opinion on the internet, any idiot, can just put stuff out there and sway the public opinion, right? But when you put your money where your mouth is, that is effectively what prediction markets are, right? And so like it allows you in today's world where there's just so much noise on the internet, because it's the marginal cost of producing information is zero. The way to sift out the truth is by making people put money where their mouth is, right? And that is what prediction markets are. And so to me, it is probably one of the most important things that have happened in our generation. And I think, it has to be part of any sort of financial plot. Like if your vision is to build kind of a global finance, a platform of finance at scale, prediction markets have to be a part of it. You cannot build one without it, right? Without access to it. So yes, this is absolutely a part of it. When, obviously, we don't know. We first need to get all this, short-term things on our roadmap. But it is very close to my heart, and I'm definitely going to do my best to add it, sometime next year.
Awesome, love to hear it. Mashi Dime says, aside from seasonal XP, are Money Badgers NFTs planned to have a separate dime allocation or any form of multiplier in the overall distribution design?
Ooh,
That's a tough one, right?
it's a tough one. Look, if you just listen to me rant about how special I think these early 10,000 users are to me, that should tell you everything you need to know about the linkages and all these things you talked about, right? So I will leave that with you.
Awesome. Frankie Dime says, Dime is money. Can you talk more about the Dime token and its thesis? Will there be a world where we can trade with Dime pairs?
Dime pairs, that's interesting. Probably not in the short term. I don't see why you would use it as a settlement currency, because it's not a par value asset, right? Like USDC or USDT. Typically, when you are when an asset is quoted, there's a base asset and the quote asset, right? The base asset is always quoted in terms of a par value currency, because that allows for the price of that thing to be the price relative to the stable thing, which in this case that $1 is worth $1 and the price of $1 doesn't move. But when you start to make something quoted in the price of something else that is also moving, it becomes very difficult for people to kind of understand or think about that price, and therefore it is difficult for that thing or that pair to have kind of a marketplace for it, because both assets are trading kind of like this way, and there's more risk associated with it, right? When there's only one asset that has movement, there's less risk. And so it's hard. All this to say is, like, I don't think that is the right use of the Dime token. Will you be able to use the Dime token to borrow and lend and things like that? Of course, we will definitely push for that, and I'm sure markets for that will also appear on L1. But using that as a quote currency, I don't necessarily see value in that, unless somebody can change my mind.
Yeah, and it also means fragmentation, right? So it doesn't really benefit that much in the end. Signifier says, with spot trading and XUSD planned for mid to late January, right before TGE, will early spot liquidity providers or XUSD minters get a bonus, Dime incentives, or airdrop boosts? I think you're a bit wrong on the timeline, but Vinny can explain, right?
Wait, sorry. Can you say that again? What was the question?
Well, he said spot trading and XUSD, he says planned for mid to late January, right before TGE. Will early spot liquidity providers or XUSD minters get bonus Dime incentives or airdrop boosts?
Oh, so by the way, XUSD actually needs us to have multi-collateral. So it's actually not going to have big, so like I said, there's two steps to it, right? One is actually listing the spot token and from the same account. And two is actually allowing people to borrow against that token, which is a requirement for XUSD. Because if you have, let's say, BTC, and you want to borrow against BTC collateral to then, use that collateral to short the perp, we will need multi-collateral, right? And so I don't anticipate that being ready pre-TGE. We're just razor focused on getting, to TGE. But then as soon as that happens, that will be the first kind of like goal for us, is to enable multi-collateral. Now, will there be bonuses or not? It's too hard to tell right now. Let's revisit this in the future once we're closer to it.
Yeah, and it's like XUSD is like a bit further out, right?
Yep.
0x Coin Insider, he's saying you're doing a great job with the product, but I think you are weak in becoming a brand. Paradex has the potential to be ranked third, but for some reason it does not feel like it can reach that value. What features will attract people's attention?
The difference between can and will is really your ability as a team to get shit done, right? And so so far you're right that we are not the number one brand in Dexland, right? But just like anything else, once we've decided we want to be the number one brand in the world, we will be the number one brand in the world, right? And I only decided that 6 months ago. So I would say, let's revisit this question in a few more months, and it's particularly in January. I think you will see a lot in January that hopefully will change your mind, or at least give you a glimpse into the trajectory of how we think about building a brand. To that point, I think there's one point I want to make, which is last year. I think it was like late last year in December. Look, we are very product driven people. We are all like very sort of like internally as a company, we are technically minded, and we're all about the product. That's how I built my first business, and did well doing that. But that business was institutional facing. We never had the need to be a retail facing brand, right? So we never needed to learn how to build a brand because it was a B2B product, right? When we launched Paradex, one of the first things I realized was like, look, this is not the institutional game anymore. This is a retail facing brand. And so when you're building a retail facing brand, and to be honest, this applies even for an institutional brand, if you truly want to make this a global brand, right, you're never building a product, you are building a brand. Once you change that kind of framing in your head, that like, hey, I'm not building a company or I'm not building a product anymore, I'm actually building a global brand that needs to sit in the hearts and minds of people, that completely changes your perspective of what you need to succeed. That's when wow, I need to be in the mindshare game. I need to be really good at the mindshare game. So all this stuff you've seen us do over the last 6 months, this understanding that like, hey, culture needs to be rewarded. So we need to invest in investing in growing brand assets. We understand, hey, we need to be on more streams. I need to be out there, talking and evangelizing about our product. I think Menno, I think you have mentioned this to me in the past, that like you've seen this change in us for the last 6 months, let's say 6 to 8 months, right? And this comes from this idea of this realization that Dime needs to be a global crypto super brand, right? And to do that, we must win the mindshare game. And so we totally understand that, and I can guarantee you will see a lot more over the next 6 months, and even more beyond that.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I mean, like, it's very many people are focused on short-term gains, short-term, but it's like, especially building a brand is just keep at it, keep being consistent, and it takes multiple years to really build a brand. And
Yep.
especially in a space like crypto, it's like people want things to grow quickly, right? But it's like that's not how it works in business. It's like
No.
you have to keep doing your work, you have to keep consistent, and
Yeah, and to
you
be
will
honest,
reap
like,
the rewards in the end.
absolutely. And so like, I had this realization last year, but it took me a year to actually assemble the right team to basically get us. And therefore you saw us really start out with brand only about 6 to 7 months ago, right? So it's like, this is just to give you guys an idea. It's not like once you decide something, it always takes like 3 to 4 or 5 times longer, because you need the best people. And we don't, Paradex is a difficult place to work because we only hire the best. And so like, it takes a very long time to find the right team. And thankfully we actually found that team of people, and they have been kind of like the reason why you're seeing us do so much stuff. Dan, Arjun, shout out to all the guys, Steamboat. Josh just joined us. These guys are really, I mean, I do all the talking, so I get the credit, but really it's these people, in the back end. These people are so fucking talented. Like, I learn from these guys every day, right? And like, that's another cool thing, is just you hire these people and you're like, you know what, you guys are going to do this brand, and you're working with them, but like, just watching them do their thing, you're like, holy shit, these people are fucking amazing, right? Like, it fills me with so much excitement to see someone new come in with a set of skills that I don't have, and add value to our business. And I look at that and I'm like, wow, this is just going to be so amazing for us in the future, because I don't have those skills, right? And so like, again, it's just all of this, like, I know I'm going a little bit of a tangent, but it's all this to say that like, building brand, we are building a brand, like, period, full stop, right? Like, and we will not stop until we are a global super brand.
Yeah, love to hear it. I think we have one more question from Adam. When the builder code will be live, and when can devs build on Paradex layer 2 or layer 1 with Dime like token fees on Paradex chain?
So, by the way, there's nothing stopping users from building on us right now. You can basically go to all our APIs. Everything's pretty open, so you can go and do that. If you are, for example, like a front end that is trying to. By the way, we have a bunch of front ends. We have ThreadFi, we have Flowbot, we have Soldeco. There's just so many guys that are basically already trading on us. So if you're waiting for something, your competitors are already kind of ahead of you and they're already building on us, and they're building on us and they're driving a lot of volume. So nothing should stop you from doing that. Builder codes we do not have yet because we're making this mad dash for TGE. We would like to get it out in the next like month or so, but if it gets delayed due to TGE, but for sure after TGE you will have builder codes, right? That part is for sure. And then the second question I think was, can you build on Paradex chain? You can actually build on Paradex chain on testnet today. We just haven't turned on mainnet yet. And again, that's just a function of our focus. We're so razor focused on building the exchange and scaling the exchange. We want to get to like 10 billion a day in volume, right? Before we can open up the chain to getting, other people sort of built. That's actually one of the advantages of Paradex. And most people don't appreciate this. Unlike, the other dexes where they have to build their own zkEVM, or they have to basically, build a, EVM sort of like sidecar. We don't have that problem, right? Because you can basically build on Paradex chain and it's not a sidecar, it's the main chain. So you'll be able to build and compose with your main account sort of, synchronously, right? So I'm actually really looking forward to that, but unfortunately it's going to take us until after TGE and until we scale the exchange, the core exchange a little bit.
Yeah, so the more important things first, right?
Yep, exactly.
Definitely. Great stuff. Well, we're gonna go to Dan and Josh with the giveaway and recap soon. Yeah, just in general, I think 2025 has been a great year. I want to thank everyone in the community just for sticking around, for good vibes, and just it's been a blast of a year. I wish you all the best for New Year's. Have a great time. Thank you, Abi. Thank you, Fidi, for joining.
Yeah, I will say one more thing. There's I basically gave a shout out to all the mods, but there's an equal number or even more number of very OG members in our community that, like, honestly, you guys make every day super fun, right? Like it's like sometimes I will open the app and just to see the banter back and forth. You guys are a huge part of what we do, and to be honest, like, there's so much stuff that happens that a lot of the times we talk about it in the office as well. So big shout out to you guys as well. You all know who you are. You might not be mods, but you are as much a part of our journey. So shout out to you as well, and thank you for being you guys and supporting us, because this has been a crazy year. We saw lots of ups, lots of downs, and we keep going higher. I can't wait to see what we achieve together in 2026.
2026 is going to be a big year for Paradex. If you remember what Fiddy said, there's more things happening in January that I can comprehend. So no New Year for Fiddy, no Christmas for Fiddy, no New Year for Paradex, and we'll see you guys next week on Time TV.
Sounds good, guys. See ya. Thank you.
That was great. Transitioning back to me and Josh, we are going to handle the giveaways. Now, that was a great stream. We got a lot of alpha. There was a lot of good questions. We couldn't get to everything, but the chat was super active. There was a lot of fun banter in there. So if you were watching the chat, you had a good time. Now, Josh, you are the new intern. You have joined Paradex very recently. We just had this long stream with a lot of alpha. What did he say?
Well, as you guys know, there is a lot of alpha coming very, very soon. I mean, January alone, huge month for Paradex. I can't reveal too much, right? I'm just the intern. I'm new here. I gotta play it cool, for these first few days. So everyone, make sure you like the stream so that I can go ahead and maybe get a job here at Paradex. But overall, just lots of jam-packed alpha. If you did leave some comments and some questions, we did go ahead and take a list of everyone who participated, and we're excited to give away some Badger boxes today. Drum roll, please. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Why don't we, Dan?
So we'll be spinning a few. We actually have quite a few to give away. It depends on how long this takes. So let's go the first one.
Let's go. Shadow.
Oh, all right. Be sure to
Congratulations.
DM either Paradex or GPT Josh or Full Value Dan. Like we got to come up with a system here. Okay, you guys can DM me Full Value Dan, and I'll be sure to get you your Badger box. DM me your ETH address, and we'll send it over. Next one.
That's right. Let's get right back into it.
So this
Drum
is for
roll,
Badger
please.
box number 2. Let's see who got something here.
All right.
Oh, so close, Ethan. RK
So
Buy.
close. So close.
So be sure to
RK Buy.
message me. Yes, message me Full Value Dan on X. You have 24 hours, or maybe we give it to someone else. Next up.
Next up, let's do it.
Here we go.
Here we
Oh,
go.
yeah, use that time. You had a great question. We're glad you won a Badger box. Be sure to DM me. I'm going to update my name here, so it's a lot easier to see my X handle. And
Good
let's
call,
get
good
on to
call.
the next name.
Let's get to the next one. Yusuf, you were very, very active, so we appreciate that. Good win, well deserved. Let's get to the next name. Drum roll, please. And we got, looks like, ooh, so close. Coincider Kevin, so close. Congratulations, LeCab.
Oh, is that Kevin?
on
Is
your-
there X Coincider?
No, it was just right before. Yeah, that was Kevin. So
Okay.
close, so close.
All right.
Congratulations,
LeCab,
LeCab. Let's go ahead and get to the next one. Go ahead and
Xerox
shoot Dan
Coincider
or
has
myself
great
a
questions and
DM.
insights. So
Yeah, for sure.
we'll see. We'll see. We still have a shot. So what is that? Is that 4 or 5 now?
We are on the 5th, I believe.
Han Solo, that time. You've been such a big supporter. You were really close, but you know, we there is something down the line for affiliates.
Okay.
Hers, be sure to DM me or we give it away 24 hours. Next.
That's right. Next up.
We got here.
All right.
Shabazz
Shabazz King 1.
I'm glad no one has a
Congratulations.
really inappropriate name, so we're not taken out of context.
That's right. LeCab already got a dub here. Gonna take him out. And let's get rolling.
All right, I haven't been counting. We'll just keep going. We'll just keep going until like that's enough.
Who we got here? 0,
7
Ace,
high square.
7.
Yeah.
That's
All
right.
right.
Congratulations on your new Badger box. Should we call it there or should we roll up another
I
one?
think we should call it there. If we brought your question on screen, we'll send you a box. So be sure to message me at Full Value Dan. You know, this stream is gonna be live. It's recorded. We can go back to it and we can make sure like the people's questions that were brought on screen get a box. And I know this was a pretty quick giveaway, but there will be more promotions in the future. We have more streams coming up. We have more giveaways with partner streamers. We're trying to build up the entertainment brand. So expect to see a lot more content, a lot more promotions, and we're going to be a lot more active on socials. So with that, this stream has been pretty long, so we're going to wrap it up. I really appreciate everyone for hanging out. This has been the Paradex last stream of the year, and this was Josh's first stream on Paradex.
Look at that. First stream of Paradex and then last stream of the year. Thank you guys so much for joining another episode of Dime TV, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. Until next time.
Catch you guys next time. Bye.